Welcome everybody to another episode of the Nerd Continuity, where we talk about design, development, and all the other crazy sort of stuff that we find online. And oh boy, I found a crazy person online today, in the good sense of the term, of course. Joining me today for a special interview is the creator, the main developer, main maintainer, and probably we could say the father of elementary OS, Daniel Foré. Hello, Daniel.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Pretty excited to have you here in Inner Continuity. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Oh, yeah, it's a pleasure. So, for probably like the few people in the Linux community that don't know who you are, and maybe everyone knows you in the Linux community and probably in all the sexy bars in Sacramento, but can you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us who you are, and what you do, and why you're so cool?
Yeah, so my name is Daniel Foré, and I'm the founder of Elementary. And Elementary is a very small software company that makes the open source Linux based desktop operating system called Elementary OS.
Awesome. That's really tight and really on point. I have so many questions about elementary OS, but first, I'm gonna push it later because I was snooping around. I was totally stalking on you and like trying to understand your background and all this kind of stuff. I saw on your YouTube channel you have a lot of music videos like of you like singing and playing guitar and stuff like that. It
Yeah.
was like always there. Did you like you were first a musician and then a developer? You were both at the same time. Like how did you become a developer? And tell us a little bit about your learning process.
Um, I did get into computers pretty young. I had an uncle that was really into computers, and he showed me how to do some stuff in like BASIC,
Oh
and
wow.
he was really into like trying to write games and stuff, and so he had me like do some sprites and stuff for him and stuff. So he like kind of be like, hey, I don't want to do this, like do this stuff, and so it was kind of like, that's how I
Child labor.
yeah. So I kind of started messing around with that kind of stuff, and then I think like from there, the next like kind of big thing I did with computers was there was this game, Little Fighter,
Hmm.
and the way that it was set up, it was really easy to go in and edit. The characters, the way they were built was like a scripting language. So it was easy to go in and kind of edit the characters, and you could edit the sprites. And so I was like making characters, and that was kind of my next experience with like programming, you know.
Nice.
But from then, actually, I didn't do a whole lot with computers for a while. Yeah, I was playing music, um, and I was in a couple different bands and played on stage a few times, but never really, got that far, of course. But it wasn't until, I think my junior or senior year of high school that I found out about Linux, specifically Corora, which was like one of the first like live CDs that had compiz on it.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that was super cool. That just like blew my mind because it was like, the spinning cube and the windows on fire and
Yeah,
and
exactly. That was like the best. I
yeah,
remember the video like on YouTube comparing Windows Vista, like the transitions of
yeah.
Windows Vista against like the transitions of the desktop environment. It was like so lightning fast and amazing.
Yeah, so it was this really cool tech demo, and I think it was kind of an interesting time too, I think, as far as like what we could do with technology, and especially compared to the mass market operating systems,
Mhm.
and it kind of like it was just really cool to me, this feeling of potential, of like, wow, like there's this thing out there and there's all these people that are making this crazy stuff and like no one's ever even heard of it,
Yeah,
and
indeed, that's true. And so, yeah, you transitioned kind of like naturally, like you felt almost comfortable when you saw the first time, like all these crazy environment, Linux, and all this kind of stuff. Uh, how did you actually arrive to the super nuts and crazy decision of like, oh, I'm gonna build an operating system. I'm gonna create a separate distro and just like maintain it completely. How much drugs you have to do in order to make that decision?
yeah. So I guess kind of the evolution there was, so I was running Corora for a while,
Hmm.
and then from there, like I kind of found out about like how distros worked and like what that was, and the idea of like that. Oh well, this is a Gentoo based distribution. I was like, well, what's Gentoo? So I went and I installed Gentoo on my machine to find out what that was about. And I think that anybody who's ever thought about making a distro should go install Gentoo, because like you have to do everything. You have to
Yeah,
choose everything,
I
right?
never used Gentoo. I'm like an Ubuntu type of guy. Always like came from Ubuntu. I saw the other day the live streaming of Brian Lunduk that he was showing
Yeah.
how to install Gentoo. That's insane. Like I'm impressed that in this day and age where everything is so fast and everything is just like click, install, click, done. Gentoo is still used.
Yeah.
Probably, as you said, it's a learning process, so maybe it's good.
Yeah. So, going through that, I think taught me a lot about like how a distro is actually put together, and like what are the parts and pieces that you need to get like a usable distribution. But we didn't really come back around the idea to do a distro until actually first we were working on apps.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
so it started out with Nautilus, the file manager, way back in the day from GNOME, and it was really ugly, and it had like so many toolbars all over the place, and it was really like confusing, and it just wasn't like there was so many other cool, sexy ideas and like things that were coming out, and it was like, well, why don't we have like 3D cover flow, or why don't we have like there were so many cool ideas from everybody else, and then we had like this really ugly file manager. So
Yeah.
we were like, okay, well, let's we forked Nautilus and started doing all kinds of work on it, and eventually got to the point where like, well, like maintaining a fork sucks. Let's write our own file manager.
Hmm.
So we kind of started over with that. But we also picked up some different developers who like thought the idea was interesting of like, yeah, let's make really cool apps.
Mhm.
And so then it kind of came to the point of, okay, let's make all these cool apps, and like, oh well, we need to ship these apps somehow.
Yeah.
And so we're like, well, we'll do a distro, and we'll ship all the apps together,
Wow.
and then it was developing the applications, and GNOME 3 came out and Unity came out, and we didn't really like either of them that much. We were coming from GNOME 2 and kind of going, well, let's do a desktop environment.
That's
And
that. Yeah, that's amazing. Pretty much like everything came, and that's basically mostly like the base point or like the main reason why open source is so popular and famous. Because if you don't like something, you can totally like, let's build something on our own that it's gonna be
yeah.
like cool and free. It's gonna be awesome. So, what was the original list of apps that then turned into Elementary OS?
Oh, okay. So we had Marlin, which was the first name of our file browser.
Yeah.
And then we had a dictionary app called Lingo,
Mm-hmm.
which I think that got discontinued because of the API got shut down or something like that.
Great. Lovely.
And then there was a contacts manager called Dexter. And let's see what else. We were working on a mail client
Mm-hmm.
called Postler, but then Yorba came out with Geary, and it was like way better. And we were like, okay, well, we're just gonna use Geary because it's already way better. And they
Yeah.
wanted to work with us on the design anyways. So yeah, there was that one. And I'm trying to remember if we started Maya Calendar way back then or not. I know that for our first release, we didn't have a music player.
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't start one yet, and we didn't really like the other music players that much, and so we were like, hey, we're just gonna be crazy people, and we're not gonna ship a music player.
Yeah, you can install
you know
your own. You can be like Clementine or Totem or
yeah.
whatever other crappy apps you can install it. Yeah, so it's fine.
Yeah, so we just made that blog post. We're like,
Mhm.
hey, we're gonna do a music player someday, but we don't have one today, so we're just not gonna ship one right now.
Yeah, that's true. And it's always like, I like your philosophy that I'm not sure if you thought about it before shipping the first release ever, but the fact that you're not going to ship something if you don't feel like it's ready, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it could be a double-edged sword though too, because like you do have to ship,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah, because I think that when we worked on Luna, which was our second release, I think we worked on it for like 2.5 years, or it was like a really long time
Mm.
between that one and our previous release.
How do you maintain yourself motivated in this like massive time span between releases and stuff like that, especially if you're like you know that you cannot ship something because it's not complete, and it's getting frustrated, and months pass, and probably the community is not that forgiving. They keep asking like, hey, is this still on? Like, is this a deprecated project or stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely tough sometimes. Because we do being based on the LTS, there is like a 2 year gap between the LTSs, right?
Yeah.
But I think like this last cycle, we did a good job of making sure we pushed updates to all the applications like on a monthly basis and keeping people informed. Like we made a point this year of like, hey, we're gonna blog about all the updates we push out and make
Hmm.
sure people know. Because like you said, we got people going, hey, like, is anything happening? Are you guys
Yeah.
doing anything? And and if they're not using it and actively checking, like how are they supposed to know that we're doing this or working on that or fix this or added this new feature? So like working on that communication has been really important.
Yeah, it's amazing. I really like how you do it, like how you keep the entire community involved. And even if like usually like when someone gets an update, it expects always like the massive overall UI changes and all the cool stuff and everything's new and shiny. But instead, like it's important to keep them in the loop, even if you're shipping just like bug fixes or like small tweaks that make the entire experience better, even if they're not visible immediately for the end user. So it's great what you're doing and what you decided. I felt really involved in the process of like creating and improving Elementary OS, even if I wasn't involved in just like developing anything. But I felt like really part of the community. So just kudos to you guys.
Hey.
A little bit of like tech. I'm a software engineer as well. I come from like a web development part, and I started like doing some software development thanks to Elementary OS and thanks to the App Center. So that was an amazing open door like entry point for me to start learning all these things. But how did you decide on the stack for your operating system, especially on Vala? How did you decide to adopt that scripting language instead of something else?
Yeah, so we went through like a few different things actually when we first started out. And the first couple apps that we did were actually Python. But we kind of found that it doesn't perform that great.
Hmm.
So we wanted something with better performance. And C sharp and Mono was a thing for a while. And actually, the first like project that I really got involved with was Docky and GNOME Do, and those guys were using C sharp.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that was a really good experience. Like the syntax of C sharp was like really nice, and so that was always kind of like something that we were thinking about. And like G C is like not very nice at all to write in. So I think that was like right out. Like nobody wants to write a C app,
Yeah.
you know. Like even dealing with like that was I think that was probably a big motivation for deciding to do our own file browser instead of continuing to work on Nautilus, is that digging through all the C code is a pain. And even the G-object-C that was in Midori that we shipped for a long time, that was also a big hurdle for people to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some competing concerns about like we want to make sure that it's low barrier of entry, that people will be able to read the code and understand it quickly, and dive in and be able to contribute without having to spend like a massive amount of time learning the code base first. But we also wanted to keep performance in mind and make sure that we had something that was natively compiled
Yeah.
and that wasn't going to eat up a bunch of resources or just run slowly. So that's kind of how we arrived on Vala, is it's very C sharp like, but it's also natively compiled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And like thanks to Vala, I think a lot of developers that weren't confident in building softwares or building native applications because of the barrier of C, and all these like even Python, even if it's an easier language than C, I feel there's still a barrier if you don't have a full background in software engineering. Instead, with Vala, like personally, I come from like 10 plus years of PHP. So I looked at Vala, the documentation is that, oh, I can recognize, I know how to write a class. I know how to write a method and some getters and setters. So it felt really familiar. And I think it's also one of the reason why people are getting involved in the App Center a lot. And it's easier to jump on board. Like you spend 1 or 2 months and you already like get the gist of it, instead of spending 3 years and trying to understand C++ and just like giving up
Yeah.
after 3 years. Um,
Yeah, no, I'm definitely glad that that's been your experience because that's exactly what we're aiming for is, and especially like you said, coming from the web, a lot of people are learning. They're coming up doing more web applications, and the hackathons and stuff at schools are all focused around web applications and coding things in JavaScript and
yeah.
stuff like that. So
Yeah, no, that's great. And I love also your approach, like you're completely like, I don't know, you're rejecting all web-based application, Electron apps, and all these JavaScript like memory hogging apps that you don't like. Like, tell us a little bit of like the history of the App Center, and like why did you decide? Well, I already know why you decided. I totally agree, but tell us why did you decide to not accept non-native applications?
yeah, I think that well, when we started out, there were a couple of big concerns, and one was just from a user experience point of view that we felt that applications, and we still feel that applications that are designed for the platform are going to be easier for new users to understand, and they're going to be easier for expert users to be able to jump in and use to their full potential as well. So, when you read like the human interface guidelines of various platforms, when you have applications that follow those guidelines, then people that are familiar with that platform will be able to get the most out of the apps the quickest, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that kind of philosophy of like, okay, native design is better than cross platform design.
Yes.
But then going beyond that, when when we started coding, when we started out, like we didn't have any code style guidelines. We didn't really have any standardization. We hadn't chosen like a flagship language or anything like that. And we were just kind of like, yeah, do whatever you want. And we found out that as a team, doing that made it a lot harder for us to share code with each other, which kind of like negates a lot of the power of being open source. Like, what's the point if we can't all learn and share from each other or collaborate on each other's projects? So by having like these standards and choosing like a one true development path, it made it a lot easier for us to have code that we can share and to learn from each other, collaborate with each other, and also documentation. Like it's so much easier to document like one path than to try to document every possible path. And I think too that and you can say if you agree with this or not, but I think that when we have one path, that when people say, "Okay, how do I write an application for elementary OS?" it's very clear how to do it.
Yeah.
Instead of like a couple of years ago when it was how do I write an application for Ubuntu, the answer was kind of like however you want, man. And
Yeah.
it didn't answer the question really.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's amazing. That's I feel like I don't know, I have like this feeling of everything was so linear and I never felt anything like this in my entire career of like picking up a new scripting language or trying to ship something for a new platform or stuff like that. I always wanted to switch to Linux my entire life because as a developer, Linux is like your home base. Like it's everything, it's built on Linux, and all the systems that I use as a DevOps are built on Linux. But you cannot use Linux on desktop because you're lacking all the basic software, all the professional level software that other operating systems like Windows and Mac OS they offer. So I always wanted to, okay, I'm gonna build the application that I miss. I'm gonna build it for Linux so I can switch. But the barrier to entry that like building an application and shipping on a whatever, even like setting up an entire PPA for me that I'm not a software engineer, it's a fucking nightmare. Like I still don't understand what the hell I have to do to make a PPA. It's just like so convoluted, and it feels like some documentation haven't been updated or hasn't been updated for like 10 plus years. Instead, like with Vala, especially with you guys picking it up, you're also maintaining Vala as well. Even if you said in a previous interview that the creators of Vala, they think it's like a futures complete. It doesn't need anything else. It doesn't need any more. It still needs some like maintenance and some bug fixing and some other stuff like that. So it's great that you offer all these tools that are creating a bridge between developers and the operating system. So it's fantastic.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah, a lot. I'm having so much fun. Okay, let's transition a little bit. We're gonna go back to elementary US, but I wanna focus the entire interview on this because it's so exciting talking about elementary US. But it's okay. So the next question I want to ask you is that was it a point in your life, a recent life, or like a previous life, where you said to yourself or you realize, okay, this is what I want to do. This is gonna be my future. This is gonna be my full-time job, or it came kind of naturally, or you're still like, I have no idea if this is the thing that I want to pursue or continue doing.
I think for me, and I think for some other people too that are kind of doing the same kind of stuff, is it's like a compulsion almost, where it's like I can't not do it. It's like, oh, I'm thinking in the shower about it, and I'm driving and thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like anytime I'm away from my desk, I'm like, oh, well, I wonder if I could do this. Or like it's I can't help but do it.
Yeah.
And I think that as long as that feeling's there, then that's what I want to do.
That's an amazing feeling. Yeah, I feel the same way. And sometimes, like, I don't know, if I have one small bug and it's like 1 a.m. and I have to go to sleep because I'm wasted and I'm tired, I go to bed and I cannot sleep because I start thinking, how can I fix the bug?
Yeah.
And then I wake up, or like I go out of bed at 3 a.m. and I start working again, fix the bug, and then I can sleep because
Yep.
after that, I remove that little thing in the back of my head. Yeah, that's a great feeling. That's what powers like great minds, right? Or drives them insane, probably
Yeah.
one of the other. Yeah. Do you have other project? Probably you don't have much free time because of like doing all these things, but do you have other projects that you're currently working on, even not directly related to elementary OS or all the other apps that you're maintaining?
Not really. I'm trying to have a good work-life balance. Actually, the last like a couple years ago, I recorded like a little EP, and put it on SoundCloud,
Oh, sweet.
and I've been telling myself like to set aside time to write, and I want to do another one soon. Because I still love to do music, but it's such a huge time commitment, though.
Yeah.
You know,
It is. Yes, I'm a
yeah.
failed musician myself. So
There you go.
there you go. I feel the struggle and I feel the pain. But I will, if it's okay for you, I will put the link to your SoundCloud EP in the
Yeah,
description below
sure.
the podcast so everyone can listen to it. Have you ever thought about using your music to do like a presentation video for elementary OS or stuff like that?
I think that there was some video we did at some point where I wrote the little background jingle.
Hmm. That's great. So you don't even have to spend like hours in finding the right music online or pay the rights for a shitty song. Like you can
Well,
write your own.
for our last crowdfunding video, we definitely paid the rights on the song. I think it was easier.
Oh, really? Oh, damn it.
Yeah.
Okay. Next
Mhm.
time that you need it, like come to my website, ritualmusic.com. It's just a little plug. I can give
Yeah.
you a song for free.
Okay.
Yeah, I work in this startup where we make royalty-free original music from like music producers. It's super cool. And it's
Sweet.
music for advertisers. So if you need something for the next rolling release, I can give you a song for free. It's just like,
Awesome. Thank
yeah.
you. Yeah, that'd be really cool.
So you said that you're trying to maintain a good work-life balance. How's it going so far? Is like all over the place, or how do you try to maintain or like to keep up with a good life?
It's definitely tough when you're working from home, especially because it's easy to get in the trap of I wake up and then open my computer. I'm at work now,
Yeah,
and
in pajamas.
yeah, and then oh, it's dark. Oh man, oh, when did I eat last? How long has it been since I went outside? So that's it's tough. So I'm trying to be more strict with myself about like take a day off or go outside or just don't answer any email today or whatever,
Hmm.
things like that. And especially to try to because like I said, it's easy too, when you like you don't think about when you wake up and you have to get ready and you go to your job, like then you're already ready,
Yeah,
and going anywhere else after that like is a really low like cost, I guess.
yeah,
But when you're working from home and you haven't got ready all day, like going outside is then it has this cost now. So it's like even to socialize now you have to like, oh, I have to get ready now,
yes,
because I didn't have to do that in order to go to work. So there's also kind of like that thing of making sure that you get yourself ready,
Mhm.
and and like saying, okay, this, it'll be worth it to go outside.
Yeah, definitely. It's worth it. Developers, it's worth it to go outside. That should be like the payoff of elementary S on the homepage. Do you have other hobbies other than music, and you try like to, I don't know, unplug for a day, or do you like to do something else to clear your mind when you have an issue or stuff like that?
Yeah, actually, I've got some buddies that we go out and play disc golf. I don't know if you ever played before.
Disc golf, what is that?
Yeah. Okay, so it's kind of like the idea is kind of like regular golf, but instead of holes, you have these baskets,
Okay.
and it's think of a basket in like the way of like a basketball basket, where it's got like the chains that hang down.
Yeah.
And so, but these are positioned on a course of like 18 holes, and then you have they're not exactly like a regular frisbee that you would throw. They're like heavier and thinner, and the lip is smaller, and like it's different.
So it's a
But
weapon,
then,
basically. If you hit
yeah,
someone in the head, it's just like
oh
chop it
yeah,
off.
it would hurt really bad.
Oh my god.
But but yeah, so you throw to these holes, and the holes are 400, 300 to 500 feet, I guess, in that range, depending on what course you're on and stuff like that. Up hills or whatever. But the disc is really interesting because unlike a golf ball that is, you hit it and it's pretty straight, like the discs curve,
Yeah.
and they can curve a lot, and you can roll them, and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's a lot of fun.
Is that like it's a sport that you guys created, or it's like a legit sport that you?
No, there's like a pro league and everything.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
and they have, tournaments and sponsors, and yeah.
That's insane. Oh my god. Yeah, I never heard about it. That's amazing. Well,
Yeah.
that's a really good way of clearing your mind, because if you're not careful, you could literally like get hurt by the disc, right? It seems like feels really dangerous, but yeah, good stuff, good stuff. But yeah, it's interesting how pretty much every developer I talk to, like the first thing that they do to try to clear their mind is just do it some sort of sport, whatever like activity outside. That's the best thing. Like it's
Mhm.
kind of rare to find a developer. Oh yes, to clear my mind, I read or like I study other things, because it's still a mental thing instead.
Right.
It's good to completely detach. And does it work? Like, do you feel better? Do you feel regenerated? Do you feel like more relaxed after a game of disc golf?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially like I said, working at home and stuff, even though I'm working with other people online, there's not the same social element. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important to have hobbies, like that, and like you said, to go outside and spend time away from screens, and to take a walk or do something with your hands,
Mm-hmm.
something that you're not mentally engaging so much.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, probably thanks to Elementary OS, or it's still, that's how I feel. Thanks to Elementary OS and the App Center, you created this bridge between the developers community that always wanted to do something and the actual operating system, the actual Linux community, in order to push applications and start doing something good and start, I don't know, pushing more the desktop Linux environment to be more accessible for non-technical users. That's pretty much everything that I feel like it's happening thanks to your work. Um, what would you like to say to all the developers that are still like kind of not sure that maybe they would like to do something like that, but they never did something like that? They have some, I don't know, few years or like even no background in actual software development. Like, what suggestion would you like to give to them?
I mean, especially for people that have very little experience, I would say to not be intimidated, don't be afraid, or think that only someone who's a genius can write apps or things like that. Anyone can do it. It's like learning another language. It's hard at first, but you get better, and the more you practice, the more fluent you'll get.
Mm-hmm.
And and especially for our platform, that's I think a really interesting and exciting time for people to come in, that um, there is very little competition in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of places. There's a lot of apps that just haven't been written yet, and that are very simple apps that you can come in and be the de facto app for our platform, even with something that's not very complicated. One of the other guys actually I think it was yesterday. He's working on an app to control the Philips Hue light bulbs.
Oh yeah, Felipe.
You know, yeah. So, and that's something it's not a super complicated app. It's very simple, but that's like a lot of people would find that really valuable.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there's nothing else that does that yet.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity.
Did you feel like when you started, do you feel sort of like friction or someone like was against what you were doing? Like, did you feel something that probably a new developer could feel if he tries to enter the open source community and try to contribute something and maybe just not too skilled? I don't know if I'm trying to find some like similarities between the experience that a new developer could have with your experience in entering the world of open source and start contributing, or also creating something that maybe other distros and other maintainers don't agree with?
Um, I think it was a very different time,
Mm-hmm.
when I got involved with stuff too. So I don't know how much would still really apply. I think like when I started getting involved with open source software, that there wasn't really very many people from like the design community or
Mm-hmm.
anything that had gotten involved at all. And I guess that's still more rare, but I think it's a little bit more normal now, especially after Ubuntu had the design team and things like that, and I think it's become more of a reality for people to care about user experience design. And sometimes, like general, like graybeard type people that will give you pushback about, that it seems that the feeling they have is that if you are designing an app, that means that you're going to make it dumb,
Really?
for stupid people only. And, that's not true, obviously.
Yeah.
But, some of that stuff you kind of got to ignore.
Yeah.
Um, but, but other than that kind of stuff, I can't, I don't know.
You're trying like I know that you're keeping the juicy things for yourself, so I'm gonna ask you another question. But had ever happened to you? Because I heard like before picking Elementary OS, I've been like looking at Elementary OS since the version 0.2 Luna release, right? I always tried to like I always wanted to use it, but then I was reading reviews and I heard a lot of, I'm not sure like calling it backlash it's correct, but I heard a lot of people like pushing back and saying no, Elementary is not good. You shouldn't use it because many stupid reasons that don't apply and don't have any like real solid background and don't make sense. Do you still get those, or because of the work that you did with Elementary OS now it's more recognized as a proper project that you can trust and you guys are doing great work and it's not just the usual, oh, I'm gonna fork Ubuntu, I'm gonna make my own flavor, stuff like that?
I think it depends on where you go.
Tell
um,
me everything.
definitely still, I see stuff on like R Linux on Reddit all the time
Yeah.
of people are like, oh, that's just an Ubuntu skin or whatever, and then you show them that we have like almost 100 repositories in GitHub, and they're like, look at all the code. you
It's not a bit too.
Yeah. I guess that's the only thing you can really do. And we're trying to work on our communication to make sure people know like the different kinds of software that we write and what we've been up to and stuff like that. And I think over time that feeling will change.
Mm-hmm.
One thing though that I think is really interesting is that when Luna came out, I felt like we had way more positive reviews, even though I think it was a way less polished and incomplete and more buggy product
Mm-hmm.
with way less features. And I wonder if that's a thing of like, as more people start to use it for longer periods of time, then they kind of dig deeper into the corner cases and like find out, the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that they didn't see on first use, kind of thing. Yeah, I guess as far as like reviews go,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I mean that's something that we always work on is trying to make sure that we're resolving issues that people come across and things
Yeah.
like that, and making sure, on our messaging that we're letting people know that, hey, if you report the issues, then we'll, do our best to solve them as quickly as we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I hear you. Like I feel the same with Luna and compared to Loki, or even like the development of Juno. That, in my opinion, is like the most exciting thing ever. Like I can't wait to put my hands on Juno. It's like I can. But I feel like the overall community was more engaged in reviews and testing like Luna instead of like the currently available version of Elementary S. I think like in my opinion, I think it's because Luna when came out was kind of like the super new things. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't really easy at that time to create a similar environment with GNOME 3, like even just like installing like the Cairo dock, or I don't know, whatever, like dash to dock extension. Like the extensions were super buggy. Like it wasn't easy to recreate a desktop environment. And then the fact that Elementary OS maintained the overall look and feel consistent throughout all the releases, users are, they always want the new shiny thing and they want to
Yeah.
get impressed, right? So Elementary OS, it's identical to Luna, like on the first eye, like, so there's nothing new to check. Instead, it's full of amazing new things. So did you feel like, I don't know, probably like tracking all the stats and the statistics is kind of like really time consuming, but did you feel like your user base grew in the past years, or it was like higher when you released Luna and then slowly like decreased with the new releases?
No, it's definitely way bigger, and we can tell that from the amount of like engagement that we have on social media, or like the amount of activity we have in like Stack Exchange, and also things like the amount of downloads that we get average per month, and the amount of payments that we're processing, and
Mm-hmm.
also the distribution of which operating system people are downloading from. I think up right now we're up to like three quarters, a little over three quarters of people download from closed source operating systems.
That's perfect.
Yeah, so the I think all the numbers are like keep trending more towards we're growing,
Yeah,
and we're becoming more and more attractive to people that aren't already running open source software.
that it's fantastic. Yeah, I love this. It's just so exciting. I don't know. I feel like I'm more exciting than you are. This thing. Like I feel like I'm the like the fanboy. There's like, oh, this is great, but whatever. Um, what do you think it's fundamentally wrong with the Linux, or in general like the open source community these days? If you have something like, if you could pick something, I know there are like so many things that are wrong, but if you could pick something that is really really wrong and we should all really change altogether, what do you think it would be?
Um, I guess if I had to pick something, then it would be um, certain groups of people that think that everything should be the same.
Hmm.
Um, like get upset about the idea of different desktop environments or different groups of people or whatever trying to do their own thing, and trying to force like the homogenous everything should, why don't we have one of these, or
Yeah. The
and like
usual
some.
argument against fragmentation, right?
Right, yes. And some standardization is good.
Yeah.
Like this is probably the most like flame on example I can give of that, but like System D.
Yeah.
you know, uh, Somehow everybody decided that System D was the thing now, and
Yeah.
we all agreed on it, and now that's standardized against like all the major distros.
Yeah.
We all agree on Linux,
Yeah.
and things like that. But we don't all agree on Toolkit. Some people like Qt, some people like GTK.
Yeah.
We don't all agree on desktop environment, and we don't all agree on how we should design applications, and we don't all agree on how they should look, or how we should express things like iconography.
Hmm.
And I think that at the end of the day, like that's okay and it's good,
Yeah.
because not everybody is the same. And I think it's more empowering for people to have that kind of choice
Hmm.
of, it's the same like when you're driving a car or when you pick out your clothes. You can pick something that fits you and thinks the way you think.
Hmm.
And like, it's almost also like a way to express yourself. And you can work in an environment that you're comfortable with, and I think that that's okay. And I don't think that There's like a zero sum game of Linux distributions where there has to be one best one. I think everybody can kind of like find their own niche and find the people that think like they do, and like having a group of people that love what you're working on is, I think, more important than trying to become like the one master overlord
Yeah.
market share thing.
Become Windows.
Yes, right.
We don't want to become Windows. Like that's not the goal. It's yeah, I love this argument and I totally agree with you. It's like it's the same argument over and over again, pretty much with everything, especially also in design or user experience. And I remember my really old professor at the university about design. He told me like, if one solution was the best solution and the only right solution, you could every other solution would be unusable by the user. But the fact that there are like specific group of people that they feel comfortable with something different, it means that there's not the right answer and the wrong answer. Everything is like a flavor. Everything is like, some people they feel more comfortable with something, and a solution is better, it's more approachable for another group of people. So it's not black and white at all, and you cannot expect that everyone is on board on the same, let's do all the same thing. It's just like, and I think it's also, I understand like the argument of the fragmentation and the like split of resources and stuff like that, but that's how you have innovation. If
Hmm.
many different people they start injecting their own ideas and creating their own things, then we're gonna have a merging in the future somewhere. It's going to happen, and we saw what happened also with, even if probably is not the right example, with Ubuntu and GNOME. Like they dropped Unity because they wanted to do their own thing, they considered that it wasn't working, and convergence or all the things they were doing with Ubuntu phone and stuff like that, they didn't, I don't know, they didn't want to pursue that, and they merged the GNOME desktop that it was continuing on like a different branch, like parallel to Ubuntu, and now they're like both teams, they are working together on the same things, which is great. So all
Hmm.
these things they can, I don't know, they can merge with each other in the future. It's not that you're doing a separated things and it's not compatible. And I also love the fact that you, in that blog post that you wrote about the misconceptions of elementary OS, that you're challenging people. They're saying you're building things only for elementary OS that are not usable for other distros, and you gave examples and screenshots of, no, you can install the Pantheon desktop on Arch or whatever you want to install it. You can have the App Center running wherever you want. So it's great. Like, do your own thing, but be open, and everyone can use it. So you've been working with Linux for many years, and probably you saw a lot of changes and a lot of like shifts in the community and where things are going and stuff like that. Do you have a sort of prediction for the future to come, especially in the desktop environment of Linux? Do you feel like this thing is gonna happen, or something particular is gonna happen and you're waiting, or I don't know, do you have some like prediction that you think will happen in the near future?
Um, I guess some of the big questions coming up are around new technologies and the things that they're going to enable us to do, and kind of the problems that they bring up. So stuff like, I think, well, to kind of go back on this theme of the idea of fragmentation, is stuff like Flatpak and Snap kind of promise not only to be containers, which I think is actually the more interesting part, but a lot of people also view them as a way to have like a universal applications now.
Yeah.
But this is kind of like pushed back on the other side by Wayland, which isn't actually a display server, but it's a protocol.
Mm-hmm.
So we have different implementations of the Wayland protocol that have to have APIs to do things like recording the screen. And so it's kind of like, some of these things might make it up into the Wayland protocol, but might be a technical requirement in a lot of ways now for applications to actually really consider targeting a certain desktop environment.
Wow.
And so I think that there will be more attention between these two different ideas of having Linux apps that run on every distribution versus having applications that are built to run in a specific desktop environment.
Hmm. Awesome.
So it'd be interesting to see these kind of camps, fighting and trading ideas.
Yeah, and I know it's too early to say, but what do you think it's gonna? Who do you think is gonna win, like the standalone package challenge between like Snap, Flatpak, and app images? What do you think? It's kind of like the easiest, or like I don't know, probably the one that could prevail against the others.
That's an interesting question because, so personally, I think that the universal package idea is the least interesting idea because to me, we started from the idea that native design is better than cross-platform design. So for us having like these universal packages, like we don't, it doesn't matter to us because
Yeah,
for us the application should be designed for the desktop environment anyway.
yeah,
So packaging is like a red herring to us. Um, but on the other end of the spectrum, you have people that are distributing Electron apps in App Image, and to
yeah,
them, like that's the best part because they're like ultimately concerned with like cross-platform as humanly possible.
yeah,
Um, but I think that it will probably end up either between Flatpak or Snap, just because as it goes on, like the privacy and security benefits of containerized applications, I think will outweigh the importance of the
mm,
cross-platformness of the applications, and there'll be some like big holdouts maybe
yeah,
of like major ISVs that want to be more cross-platform as possible. But it seems like even stuff like Steam can be installed as a Snap, pretty portably. It sounds like so. I don't know, but I think I don't think that I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but I don't think that App Image will win on a technical level
uh-huh.
compared to the packaging formats that are built around containerization first.
Huh, interesting. Okay, from like a personal point of view, that as a developer that doesn't know anything about this and is trying to build a snap image and an app image and a Flatpak, everything is terrible for now. Like everything is just like so god awful that I cannot understand. Even if like when the build process like succeed and I have a snap or an app image, and then I use it on another distribution like on Pop OS or Ubuntu or something, and it doesn't work, and it's just like it
Yeah,
doesn't launch, and I have all these weird errors that I didn't get during the building process. It's like, okay, the technology is not there yet, but probably like, if personally I think the one that offers the easiest compiling, or the easiest, the more accessible development tool for a developer to understand how the thing works and how to build it properly, it's going to be the successful one. Because so far everyone is like,
right.
oh, just write a YAML file and just like compile it. That's it. And it doesn't offer like a proper log if something goes wrong, or like it gives you like positive response and it actually doesn't work and you don't know like what
Yeah.
the fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things because we went to the Sprint in New York to talk about Snap packages, and one of the things that I don't really like about the Snap YAML right now is it kind of duplicates some of the metadata that's available in like the app data XML.
Yeah.
And it seems like even the Debian packaging for us does that right now. So I think that like a future packaging format that just depends on AppStream would probably be. And I haven't looked into Flatpak enough; they might already do that,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems like less duplication. I don't want to have to update my changelog and description and whatever like across multiple times across my project. Like that should just be in one file.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Totally
but
agree.
but
Totally
yeah,
agree.
like you said, smaller, easier. That's one of the reasons that we really started getting into like Meson instead of CMake,
Yeah.
is because the Meson build files are so much simpler and easy to read, and you can write them super fast. And
Yeah, exactly. Well, as far as you write an amazing documentation like you did for the entry point, like to build the first App Center app from scratch, like I never used CMake, and by following your documentation was like so easy, and I understood everything. So it's fine. Like, if you have good documentation, you can have even like crappy, over convoluted code because you can understand it. So that's the thing also about these containers and this package manager and stuff like that. The documentations is not great. I don't know
Mhm.
why. Like they're written by developers that they worked on that thing, so they give a lot of stuff for granted.
Right.
Instead, like if you never use a snapcraft, or you never actually build an app image, so okay, I can read the YAML file, but if why I'm writing those things at that exact location, what are all these like keywords that are not descriptive, are not like explained in the documentation? Is it like a lot of things are given for granted because everyone thinks that another developer with my same level of expertise will try to use this thing,
Right.
and that's the major like entry point issue that I have personally, like because I'm not a smart person, so I need everyone to give me like the spoon and just like eat this. Okay, now you have to click this and write this. It should be like that.
See, that's how I felt too about like so when I first started writing the documentation that we have on our website, that was actually some of my first experience writing Vala apps. Like I had been completely design side up until about that point. And I finally decided like, okay, I kind of know how this works, but I should really, really know how this works and get into development. And so I wrote that documentation from the perspective of not really understanding how things work and just kind of like writing down when I figured it out
Mm-hmm.
and being like, okay, this is why this is, for me, because I'm like that too. I don't want to just like copy and paste the thing and
Yeah.
then not understand next time. Like I want to read it and understand, why are we doing this? What does this mean? What does this mean to me and how can I use this in my next application?
Yeah, that's true. That's amazing. That's the basic curiosity. And I'm working with Felipe on like building the libgtk canvas for Akira and SpiceUp to have like all those um, design thing, like the items based on clutter to move in a canvas and create objects and stuff like that. And he's amazing in writing these things, and I'm trying to contribute in a sort of way, like with my crappy code. And every time he pushes back my PRs, but every time he explains with comments like you shouldn't write this because this is how you write it, and links the documentation, like he's been great. Like he's actually teaching me how to go those things. So it's like that's what you need pretty much when you're learning something, like understanding the why and not just copy pasting something.
Right.
And oh, it works, but if I had to do it myself, I wouldn't know what to do, and
Right.
that's not useful at all. Wow. So we're almost at the end of the interview. It's been great. I'm gonna have like a bunch of quick questions just to cool down a little bit. But how do you see yourself in 10 years? Or I don't know, 20, 30. 10 years is maybe like the regular time span that someone can change drastically its life.
I hate this question.
Okay, next
um,
question.
no, I'll answer it. I guess
A disc golf pro champion.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I guess hopefully, have all like debts paid, um, you know, maybe married, buy a house, that kind of stuff would be nice. Like have just kind of, the life in order,
Mm-hmm.
and comfortable and things like that. I think would be good. I'd be happy with that.
Nice. That's a really beautiful answer. Like usually everyone is like, "Oh, I want to be successful. I want to be fucking
That is
the best
successful.
in my." Yeah, you are successful. Exactly. You can. What do you want more? Come on, man. Huh? Just like think about a family. Hey. um. This is a question that everyone fails, and I don't know why I keep asking everyone this fucking question. But everyone's like, "No, I don't want to answer." But can you describe yourself in 3 words?
In 3 words.
Yeah. Dun,
Oh
dun, dun.
man,
Yes.
I didn't see this on the question sheet.
Yes, it's there. Number 13.
That's such a tough one.
It's tough.
How do you describe yourself in 3 words?
Yeah.
Um, Man, you're just gonna have dead air while I'm trying to figure out this question. Let's come back to it. Can we come
Yeah,
back to it?
absolutely, absolutely. No worries. Everyone does that. And like, I don't know, I did probably 10 interviews, just one person answered to these questions. I don't know why I keep it there. It's just to make,
He was thinking about it all the time, or what? Like, I'm gonna have that one in my back pocket. Somebody's gonna ask me that question.
yes, exactly. It's just to make people uncomfortable during the interviews. It's just I do all this. So right at the end where you feel like so juicy and done, like boom, 3 questions. Like fuck. Okay. Other than yourself and your EP, what artist or song would you like to recommend to the audience?
Actually, somebody recommended me an artist recently that they released an album this year, called Icarus the Owl, and that was pretty good. I like that. It was kind of really interesting. It reminded me of a lot of music that was coming out and around probably like 2006 to 2008.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like that era of like rock, like almost post-hardcore kind of
Oh,
rock or whatever.
nice. Are you a rock metal guy or like more mellow pop, EDM? Like, what type of music do you like?
I like all kinds of stuff. I'm all over the place, but I think probably some of my favorite stuff is like the stuff that was popular when I was in high school, pretty much. You know,
Grunge.
where it's like all the stuff from like Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco and My Chemical
Oh
Romance
yeah.
and like all that kind of stuff that came out and Chiodos and
Nice. Awesome. Yeah. Pretty similar. Oh wow. Sorry. OBS just gave me minus 300% of CPU unit usage. So
Whoa.
that's fantastic. I don't know what the fuck this means, but whatever. So it's pretty much the end of the interview. If you don't want to describe yourself in 3 words, we can stop it here and just like, did you think about it? Do you know what are the 3 magic words?
Okay, three magic words. Um,
I love how everyone starts like looking around. It's like
I know.
trying to find the answer.
Lamp, uh,
Computer.
bed, pencil.
Yeah, exactly. That's
There you
the
go.
overall answer of it. I have to fucking remove this question from the list.
Um, whiskey. Well,
Whiskey. Oh, interesting. Yeah, that could be.
yeah, that's not a bad one. Yeah. How about 3 objects that are nearby? I've got, well, computer, obviously.
Yeah.
That's a good one. We'll keep whiskey on there. That's a good one.
Nice.
And then let's throw in a scented candle just to
Santa can. Oh my god.
just to smooth that
Okay.
out.
That sounds like a perfect evening. Like computer, whiskey, and Santa candles. Like that's the developer dream, man. Sexy and productive at the same time. That's amazing.
Yeah, just
And
throw on
slightly
some bossa
drunk.
nova in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Okay. So where people can find you online if you want to like, plug your own personal social network other than the elementary OS stuff.
Yeah, well, if you're looking for Elementary, you can find us at elementary.io. And especially if you're interested in contributing, there's a link up there, get involved. And it has all kinds of information about if you speak another language and want to help translate, or if you can help people answer questions like a support, or if you're a designer, developer, or anything. Like there's tons of different ways people can get involved, even if they don't know how to program. And if you're looking for me personally, you can check out my website's got links to all the little stuff I'm working on. And so it's just danielforé.com. Yeah.
Awesome. And I will be sure to put all the links in the description below this video, podcast, wherever I'm going to share it. So, well, thank you so much. That was delightful. You're a really great guy, and I had so much fun in talking with you.
Thanks. I'm glad we got to talk. It was really fun.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much again. And let's be sure to check Elementary OS and contribute to this amazing distro, guys. Okay. Have a fantastic rest of the day. From a developer that hates plugins, here's a plugin that doesn't suck. Elementor is a live page builder for WordPress. It's amazing. It's open source, faster than the competition, easy to use. It doesn't require any coding for anyone to just build a beautiful page. I think I'm gonna say it. Yes, I'm gonna say it. It's the best page builder for WordPress. said it. It's totally free for you to use it, download it, and install it on all the websites that you want. And if you really like it, you should consider buying the Pro version. That it's not expensive at all, and it comes with tons of new features. Click the link in the description below the video to learn more.